What if the maps we trust, the reality we inhabit, hold secrets so profound, so unsettling, they challenge the very fabric of our understanding? What if there existed a place, meticulously documented yet utterly invisible, a phantom on the edge of perception, where time itself became a malleable, terrifying force? This isn't a tale of fiction designed to entertain. It's a whisper from the fringes of human experience. A story that compels us to look beyond the obvious, to question what we believe to be solid and immutable. It's the story of Site Echo, a testament to the mysteries that lie hidden, not in distant galaxies, but beneath our very feet. For years, it existed as nothing more than a classified designation, a series of internal memos and hushed conversations among a select few. Site Echo. A military base with no coordinates, no entry on any public or even most classified maps. Utterly absent from satellite imagery, it was a ghost in the machine, known only within the deepest echelons of a very particular branch of service. To speak of it outside those walls was to invite a chilling silence, a swift redirection, or simply a blank stare. It was a place that, by all conventional metrics, did not exist. Yet, people went there. People served there, and people returned, profoundly changed. The journey to Site Echo was shrouded in an almost impenetrable veil of secrecy. Personnel selected for deployment to this enigmatic location found themselves undergoing a peculiar form of preparation. They were briefed in sterile rooms, their personal devices confiscated, their minds primed for an experience that would defy logic. The actual transport itself became a blur, a gap in memory that no amount of subsequent reflection could fill. Soldiers reported a sense of disembarking from a vehicle, perhaps a plane or a specialized transport, but the journey itself, the flight path, the route, was all a blank. No takeoff, no landing, no specific memory of the transition. They simply found themselves there, asterisk. It was as if the journey itself was a deliberate act of mental erasure, a way to ensure no one could ever trace the path back, no matter how hard they tried. This deliberate obfuscation, this stripping away of anchors to the familiar world, was the first unsettling step into the enigma of Site Echo. Once inside, the sense of disembodiment only deepened. Site Echo was entirely underground, a labyrinthine complex hewn from rock and steel, minimalist in its design to the point of starkness. There were no windows, no natural light, no view to the outside world whatsoever. The air, recycled and conditioned, carried a subtle, metallic tang. Every corridor, every room, every common area was designed with a utilitarian precision that bordered on the oppressive. There were no personal touches, no distractions, no visible comforts, and most strikingly, there were no clocks. Not on the walls, not on the computer interfaces, not even on the personal devices that had been confiscated. Time, as a measurable, external constant, simply did not exist within the confines of Site Echo. This absence of external temporal markers created a profound sense of isolation, a detachment from the ordinary rhythm of life. Days bled into nights, shifts blurred into an endless cycle of duty, rest, and repetition. Without the sun to rise and set, without the steady tick of a second hand, the human mind, so reliant on these cues, began to falter. The personnel at Site Echo learned to navigate by internal rhythms, by the changing of personnel, by the arrival of meals, by the sheer, exhausting weight of their tasks. It was a psychological experiment in sensory deprivation, a deliberate effort to strip away all external references and force the individual into an internal landscape where only the immediate task held meaning. Yet, it was upon their return from Site Echo that the true, unsettling nature of the base began to reveal itself. The standard deployment cycle for personnel assigned to Site Echo was a mere 2 weeks, a short stint, by military standards, one that typically resulted in a soldier returning refreshed, perhaps a little tired, but otherwise ready for reintegration. But the soldiers who emerged from their 2 weeks at Site Echo were different, profoundly so. They returned looking utterly exhausted, their eyes hollowed, their faces etched with a fatigue that spoke not of days, but of months, even years, of relentless deployment. Their skin often appeared sallow, their movements slow and deliberate, as if their bodies had aged beyond their chronological years. Disorientation was a common symptom. They struggled to adjust to normal daylight, to the cacophony of everyday sounds, to the simple concept of a clock ticking on a wall. It was as if they had lived an entire lifetime in a mere 14 days. Their bodies and minds bearing the scars of an experience far more prolonged and punishing than any 2-week assignment could possibly inflict. The medical reports, often classified and quietly filed away, spoke of accelerated cellular aging markers, of stress levels equivalent to sustained combat exposure over many months, of psychological trauma that mirrored extended periods of isolation and deprivation. Something was terribly wrong with time at Site Echo. It wasn't merely distorted, it was devouring. It was consuming the very essence of those who served there, leaving them aged, bewildered, and forever marked by the phantom base that existed nowhere, yet stole so much. What happened in those invisible, clockless chambers? What force was at play that could warp the very fabric of existence for those trapped within its confines? The questions lingered, chilling and unanswered, a silent testament to the terrifying, unspoken truth of Site Echo. And this, I assure you, was only the beginning. The tales that filtered out, whispered and hushed tones between those few cleared to know, painted a picture of an existence stripped bare. Site Echo was indeed underground, a labyrinth of stark, unadorned corridors carved deep beneath the earth. There were no windows, no natural light, no hint of the world outside. And crucially, there were no clocks. Not a single timepiece adorned its walls, nor were personnel allowed to carry their own. This wasn't merely a design choice. It was an integral part of the enigma, a deliberate erasure of the very mechanisms by which we perceive and measure time. Without external cues, without the sun's rise and fall, without the rhythmic tick of a second hand, the human mind struggles, it drifts, it loses its mooring. And at Site Echo, this drift became a torrent. Imagine living in a perpetual present, where every now felt simultaneously fleeting and eternal. Meals arrived at irregular intervals, shifts blurred into an endless continuum, and the only indicator of a day passing was the rotation of personnel through their duties. But even that was deceptive. Soldiers spoke of entering a mess hall, eating, and then feeling as if they had just left, only to find their next meal being served. Or they would complete a task, turn around, and feel as if they had already done it countless times. The disorientation wasn't just physical exhaustion. It was a profound fracturing of reality, a gnawing uncertainty that eroded their very sense of self. They were living, but they weren't experiencing asterisk time in any recognizable way. It was less a passage and more a consumption, leaving them aged, bewildered, and forever marked by the phantom base that existed nowhere, yet stole so much. And then, amidst this already fractured reality, a new, chilling dimension of Site Echo's mystery unfolded. Private First Class Elias Thorne, a young, eager soldier on his second tour to the base, simply vanished. He was last seen by a colleague heading down Corridor Gamma, a stretch of passage identical to countless others. One moment, he was there, a silhouette moving under the fluorescent hum. The next, he was gone. No scream, no struggle, no trace, just an empty corridor and a profound, terrifying silence. A full lockdown was immediately initiated, an unprecedented event for Site Echo. Every inch of the base was scoured. Every camera feed, sparse as they were, was reviewed. Every single person was accounted for, but Thorne was not found. It was as if he had been erased from existence. The official report was vague, inconclusive, citing unforeseen operational incident. But the unofficial, unspoken truth among the remaining personnel was far more terrifying. Thorne hadn't just disappeared. He had ceased to be, and the response from command was equally chilling. Within hours, Corridor Gamma was sealed off. Heavy blast doors, previously unnoticed, slid into place. Welding shut the section where Thorne had vanished. No explanation was given. No questions were answered. It was simply gone. A piece of the base, and a piece of a man, swallowed by the inexplicable. while the internal mysteries of Site Echo continued to deepen. An entirely different kind of anomaly was being observed thousands of miles away, by someone who wasn't even aware of the base's existence. Dr. Eris Thorne, no relation to the vanished private, though fate has a cruel way of weaving threads, was a brilliant but notoriously eccentric satellite imagery analyst working for a highly specialized intelligence unit. His job was to scour endless petabytes of desert photography, looking for patterns, anomalies, anything that might suggest illicit activities or undiscovered resources. For months, Eris had been noticing something peculiar, a faint, almost imperceptible geometric shadow appearing in high-resolution desert images taken over a specific, remote quadrant. It wasn't always there. In fact, it was absent far more often than it was present. It would appear for a few hours, sometimes a full day, then vanish as if it had never been. It was too regular to be a natural phenomenon, too precise to be an optical illusion. Eris, with his meticulous eye, began to log its appearances, cross-referencing them with other data points. What he found sent a shiver down his spine. The fleeting appearances of this geometric shadow corresponded almost perfectly with the clandestine resupply schedules for a certain unidentified operational asset, the very same asset that was internally known as Site Echo. His calculations suggested that whatever this shadow represented, it wasn't a permanent structure. It was something that materialized. It didn't just exist, it chose to exist. Or was forced to exist, only at specific times. For specific purposes. This wasn't a base hidden by camouflage. This was a base that defied the very laws of spatial permanence. It wasn't just off the maps. It was off the grid of reality itself, a phantom base, phasing in and out of existence, a temporal anchor point for something far stranger than any conventional military operation. The implications were staggering. If Site Echo only sometimes existed in our conventional reality, what did that mean for the personnel inside? Were they phasing with it? Was their experience of time being warped because they were, for periods, existing outside of normal temporal flow? The exhaustion, the accelerated aging, the disorientation. It all began to coalesce into a terrifying hypothesis. Site Echo wasn't just a physical location, it was a temporal anomaly. A bubble where the rules of existence were consuming the very essence of those trapped within its fluctuating boundaries. The human mind craves stability, predictability. It builds its understanding of the world on the bedrock of consistent laws. But Site Echo shattered that bedrock, not with an explosion, but with a whisper. A subtle shift in the fabric of what was real. And yet, amidst this profound uncertainty, there was a relentless drive to understand, to pierce the veil of the unknown. It is a testament to the human spirit that even when faced with such an overwhelming assault on logic and perception, we seek answers. We push against the boundaries of what we believe possible, not just for survival, but for the fundamental need to comprehend our universe, no matter how terrifying that comprehension might be. The combined weight of these bizarre occurrences, the aged soldiers, the vanished, and the flickering shadow in the desert, began to exert an unbearable pressure on the clandestine organization that oversaw Site Echo. The cost, both human and operational, was escalating beyond measure. It became clear that this asset was not just dangerous. It was uncontrollable, an entity unto itself. And so, with a chilling finality, a decision was made. Site Echo, the phantom base that existed nowhere and devoured time, was officially decommissioned. But even its end was shrouded in the same impenetrable mystery as its beginning. The order came down, stark and unembellished. Decommission Site Echo. No grand ceremony. No official press release. No internal memo detailing lessons learned. It was as if the organization was trying to erase its very existence from memory. A desperate attempt to sever ties with something too dangerous, too alien, to ever truly control. There were no closure reports filed, no records of personnel evacuation, no final inventory of equipment. It simply ceased to be, officially. The last entry in its operational log was chillingly brief, a stark command that echoed the profound terror it must have instilled in those who penned it. Do not attempt to relocate. This wasn't a decommissioning in the traditional sense. It was an act of surrender, a desperate plea to an unknown force to simply Stop. To cease its silent, relentless consumption of time and sanity. The very act of attempting to forget, to ignore, highlighted the immense power Site Echo wielded, not through conventional might, but through its sheer defiance of every known law of physics and reality. It was a wound in the fabric of existence, and the only cure they could conceive was to pretend it didn't exist, to cordon it off, not with fences, but with an official policy of oblivion. And yet, the mystery, like a phantom limb, persisted. Into dusty forgotten corners of the logistical network, a ghost in a machine continued its silent work. Despite being officially decommissioned, despite the chilling directive not to seek it out, Site Echo's supply records continued to update. Automatically, week after week, month after month. Requisitions for equipment, for specific, specialized materials, for sustenance, flowed into the system. There were no human hands inputting these requests, no physical base receiving them, no known destination for the resources that were, in theory, still being allocated. It was as if the base itself, an entity beyond our comprehension, possessed a lingering, autonomous will, a phantom hunger that defied its official eradication. This final, inexplicable detail solidified the terrifying truth. Site Echo wasn't merely a place. It was a phenomenon. It wasn't a project that could be started or stopped by human decree. It was a whisper from the edges of reality, a tear in the veil, a place where the universe itself seemed to be experimenting with new, terrifying rules. The geometric shadow, the vanishing soldier, the accelerated aging, the impossible travel. All these pieces now clicked into place, forming a mosaic of a reality far more fluid and terrifyingly magnificent than we dared to imagine. What does it mean, then, for a base to exist only sometimes, for its records to update automatically, long after its official demise? It means that our understanding of existence, our rigid adherence to maps and coordinates and linear time, is but a fragile construct. It means that there are dimensions, realities, or states of being that lie just beyond our perception, occasionally bleeding into our own, challenging the very foundations of what we believe to be real. And this, my friends, is where the true inspiration lies. Not in the fear of the unknown, but in the profound courage it takes to confront it. Site Echo, in its terrifying, elusive glory, forces us to reevaluate our certainties. It asks us to consider that the boundaries we perceive are not absolute, that the impossible might simply be the not yet understood. It reminds us that humanity's greatest strength isn't in knowing all the answers, but in the relentless, unyielding drive to ask the questions, to push against the edges of our knowledge, even when those edges are terrifyingly sharp. Think of those who encountered Site Echo. They faced a reality that defied every logic, every law they had ever known. They witnessed time itself unraveling, saw colleagues vanish into thin air, and returned irrevocably changed. Yet, in their disoriented eyes, in the painstaking analysis of the satellite expert, in the quiet persistence of the logistics clerk, there was an unwavering human spirit. A spirit that, even when faced with the utterly incomprehensible, seeks patterns, seeks understanding, seeks meaning. This story of Site Echo is not just a tale of a phantom base. It is a profound metaphor for the mysteries that lie within our own lives and within the vast universe we inhabit. We often build our own Site Echoes, places or situations in our lives that defy explanation, that consume our energy, that seem to operate on their own strange, distorted timeline. Perhaps it's a persistent challenge that refuses to be decommissioned, a dream that seems to exist only sometimes, or a personal struggle that warps our perception of time and progress. The lesson from Site Echo is not to fear these enigmas, but to approach them with a blend of humility and fierce curiosity. It teaches us that growth often occurs at the very edges of our comfort zone, where the maps run out and the familiar rules no longer apply. It reminds us that true strength isn't about having all the answers, but about the resilience to live with the questions, to navigate the fog of uncertainty with an open mind and a courageous heart. Site Echo, in its silent, continuing existence, whispers a powerful truth. The universe is infinitely more complex, more wondrous, and more mysterious than we can ever fully grasp. And within that boundless mystery lies an endless frontier for discovery, for learning, and for the expansion of human consciousness. So, let us not shy away from the shadows on our own maps. Let us instead embrace the unknown, for it is there, in the uncharted territories, that we truly discover the depth of our own potential, the enduring power of the human spirit, and the magnificent, untamed beauty of existence itself. The Phantom Base may continue its silent vigil, but its greatest legacy is the inspiration it ignites within us. To keep exploring, to keep questioning, and to never cease marveling at the boundless wonders of our reality, however strange they may be.